Good morning, Dr. Doom.
Good morning, Stephanie. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Uh, so,
Yeah,
yeah, you were predictably doomy last night on Brian Williams because this is exactly what it's not like this is
yeah,
hard to predict, right? So,
correct.
because people traveled for Thanksgiving, and I, like millions of Americans, am in a struggle. My mom's almost 98, Alzheimer's, just went into assisted living, is in a very steep decline in the last month. And trust me, I don't want to be someone that adds to the problem, doctor, because all these new CDC recommendations, I was already doing them. I don't even go to the supermarket. I don't go anywhere. And so, talk to us about, so the CDC urged Americans to postpone holiday travel after Thanksgiving, which will, as I think you and others have said, will
Yeah,
probably lead to a surge on top of a surge. Cases are rising, hospitalizations are increasing, deaths are increasing. We're asking Americans to help prevent these increases and avoid travel. People who do travel should be tested 1 to 3 days before and 3 to 5 days after their trips while avoiding public activities for 7 days. They are shortening the recommended quarantine time, right, for people who've been exposed from 14 days to 10 days if the individual is not exhibiting symptoms. If someone is tested negative, the CDC recommends quarantining for 7 days. So, talk to us because you've been warning about this along with every other expert, right? So,
yeah.
so yeah, go ahead. Just
Well, no, I'm just going to say this is, if you look at the graphs of fatalities, hospitalizations, and so on, they're basically straight up.
yeah,
And it's become dire upon dire. And the warnings are getting more strident because there's greater fear that this is just going to be continuing to be out of control for the foreseeable future. And I wasn't entirely doomish last night because I am very encouraged and excited about the vaccines,
yeah,
which will be coming along eventually. And that's something important for people to know. And it's important because, if we take the vaccines, there's a very good chance that we'll be protected individually and our communities will be protected. And that is good news, but we're going to have to hang in there until the vaccine's ready to be distributed. What does hanging in there mean? It means, unfortunately, some more hardship in terms
yeah,
of restricting travel, making sure we're not stepping out of our immediate circles any more than absolutely necessary. And we're getting more intensity in those messages now from experts and from the CDC and so on. And by the way, in case you're thinking that anything's going to change about that part when the Biden team comes in, it's not. They're going to
yeah.
be saying exactly the same message as Redfield, the head of the CDC, has been saying. So we're going to have to just do what we need to do, Steph.
Well, yeah, you said the UK's approval for Pfizer vaccine is promising news. Watching how this vaccine is transported with cold storage implemented will be lessons the U.S. should monitor closely. I don't know about you, Doc, but first of all, I was saying it is sad that we sort of trust other countries before we trust ours right now under Donald Trump, whether it's the FDA or the CDC. But
Yeah.
wanted to get your take on it. Does seem like the FDA has, thank God, withstood the enormous pressure of Donald Trump's ego to rush this so that he gets credit, right? The Dr. Stephen Hahn said the agency has all hands on deck, is working day and night on the weekends to evaluate and clear multiple coronavirus vaccines for emergency use. He said a typical approval timeline for a set of vaccine clinical trials of this size, Pfizer had 44,000, Moderna had 30,000, would typically take between 3 and 4 months, maybe even longer to review all the data. They're now trying to get the process completed in about 3 weeks. That makes me nervous, but he did say something that made me feel better. He said, we don't just trust a press release. We're going to look at data that we're going to do, and we're going to do our own analysis, and then we're going to look at specific patient groups. We're going to look by ethnic groups. We're going to look at both safety and efficacy from a number of different ways. I heard you talk about this on Brian Williams, but talk about this
Yeah.
because as much as we all want this, there's a lot of emotion in that. If
Hmm.
they're starting with nursing homes, I want my mom to go first. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Sure.
like there's a lot
Of
of
course.
emotion,
Of course.
and yet you were talking about why it was faster in Britain, last night, and I was sort of heartened to know that our process is going to be a little more thorough. Explain that to us.
Right. So it's just a better idea for an agency like the FDA to do its own testing with its own experts and not depend on what the manufacturer says. You could imagine how much the manufacturer would like to get their product out there
Yeah,
and sold. There's a lot of money involved here. And a lot of countries like the UK are able, are, feel somehow okay taking the word of the manufacturers. We in the U.S. in our systems do not, and that is a really good thing. And to have Stephen Hahn really heroically standing up to the badgering and public
Yeah.
torturing by Donald Trump is a really cool thing. And I have a lot of respect for him. And people just need to
Yeah.
be patient. We need to do it the right way. We're already rushing the process, as you pointed out, Steph, and we don't want to rush it to the point where we're doing something that's not going to be safe.
Yeah.
So I say hats off to Stephen Hahn, and we'll hang in there until it's ready. And by the way, it's really still possible. We'll be able to vaccinate between 12 million and 15 million people by the end of the year if this goes reasonably well here. And that means first responders, healthcare workers, and older people who are at risk, who are in nursing homes, and so on. And they will be first in line, as they should be. So,
oh, and you know who's
that's
going to
what
be
we're
first
looking
in that
forward to.
line? Because I'm gonna go all Shirley MacLaine in terms of endearment.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like,
Give my
Mother.
the pain shot.
Please, I don't see why she has to have this pain.
Okay.
It's time for her shot. You understand? Do something. All she has to do is hold out until 10, and it's past 10.
Yikes.
It's pain.
Mom.
It's pain. Give her the shot. You understand? You're going to give her
Mother.
the shot.
That sounds like my late mom. Is that, who was that again? Is that Shirley?
Shirley MacLaine, yes.
Yeah. You know,
Get my mom the
you
shot.
gotta find one of the things that's so great about you, Stephanie, is we have to find moments of lightness in a very dark tunnel right now. It's part of human nature, and you really need to be applauded for hanging in there the way you do, following the rules, and keeping us, from just falling into depression here. So
Aw.
I'm
from
just,
America,
I
thank you.
as I say, I am a conduit for Dr. Doom. That is my sole purpose in life. You said, I know there is COVID fatigue. We still must be vigilant. U.S. hospitals are in danger of buckling beneath the weight of the pandemic and the ongoing needs of other sick people. I think, Doc, as most of us here as liberals, we get that. I mean, Rachel Maddow in that, impassioned monologue, she said, there is no more room for you at the hospital. Whatever, risks you're thinking of taking, don't do it, So it's, and a lot of us are locked in an existential moral battle like I am, where, my mother is really not doing well. And so, but even I, like, Doc, I don't want to be part of the problem because I get it that everybody thinks COVID doesn't apply to them. I think what must have killed you, because it killed me, is them interviewing people in the airport at Thanksgiving. And literally some of them are just like, I don't know, I was bored. I just wanted to go. I just, like, unless
been
you're
so
having
long.
an
Yeah,
emergency, you should
Yeah.
not be traveling, period. Right?
Right. And if you're going to travel, you travel by car, the windows are kept down, you keep it ventilated, and you just stay out of airports and train stations. It's a horrible thing to have to say. Who would have thought, Stephanie, a year ago, that people would be advised not to step on an airplane or get into a train?
Yeah.
It's really kind of extraordinary. We've sort of gradually gotten there, like boiling frogs. It's just it just happened, and here we are in a whole different scenario than we have been living for our entire lives.
Yeah.
And people are telling us, you can't do this, you can't do that, otherwise you might die or you might kill somebody by spreading COVID. This has been a long, long slog for us, and it'll be over, but it's not over yet, unfortunately.
Yeah. You said, this was heartbreaking, Doc. You tweeted, COVID-19 studies showed that every COVID death leaves 9 loved ones, friends grieving, huge impact on surviving children. Heartbreaking that we're not following common sense guidelines. Virus is bad enough. We don't need politics to kill us too. And again, you're right. It's touching. I mean, I don't know anybody that it hasn't touched. I mean, again,
Yeah.
my mom went into assisted living a month ago. We were like, oh, great. They've had no cases. They've had 2 now. So, and the ripple effects of them having a lockdown for the last month means no one's been able to visit her. A person with dementia doesn't understand that. So she's in steep decline. Dementia's getting worse. I mean, there are all these ripple effects that are, we're all terrified. The next call is going to be your mom got it.
It's terrible. One of the main treatments, so to speak, for dementia and Alzheimer's is contact with family.
Yeah.
Contact with family. It's not that we have a million tools in our toolbox here for this. So
Yeah.
it's so horribly painful that we can't do the basic interactions on a human level. that we need to do for people with Alzheimer's. But we're in danger of spreading it if we do.
And Doc, you've talked a lot about, and you tweeted a lot about, you did a big Thanksgiving, a big doom party.
A doom
with,
zoom.
With
zoom.
presumably that little ham grandson of yours.
A doom zoom. Oh my God, that's amazing. Yes.
Starring, I'm guessing.
I copyrighted that. Take it easy there.
Including that little ham of a Grand Doom that starred in Sexy Liberal Virtual Tour. And you said just the thing during COVID-19. You just did, and a lot of people are getting creative with how they do their. Not everyone has as cool a name as a Doom Zoom, but I'm just saying. But again, we all have our. My mom can barely see or hear. She doesn't really the Zoom. No, she doesn't. Yeah, she doesn't have an iPad. I mean, they've done it with the staff a couple of times, but it's hard for her. She can't really see or hear, and it kind of frustrates her. And so, I mean, Doc, you're right. There are just, but again, these ripple effects. And you, as a world-renowned pediatrician, we've been having this conversation for how long? That I don't have kids, and I know kids need to be in school. And this is what I said from the beginning, that we should close the bars and restaurants and open the schools and put the money toward doing it safely, right? I mean, it's just
correct. Yeah, and this is people struggling to find right answers. And I've said this many times. Who envies right now the job of a mayor of a city or a governor where they have to make these decisions? A lot of people are sort of bloviating, saying you should do this, you should do that. At the end of the day, it's Mayor de Blasio in New York, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, who has to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. And whatever they say, there's going to be kickback. There's going to be people that are furious. It's a thankless job right now. And again, who would have thought that?
Yeah. And then there's those of us, like, I've been doing a stay-at-home order basically since March. So it's like, again, it is, but you're right, the range of people, and as you've often talked about, because of the lack of giant void of leadership in the White House, it's like two different countries. There are some people that just think it doesn't exist and just behave as if it doesn't exist. And then there's those of us away on the other end of the scale that haven't left our houses because we're
this is what I was going to say. There's people like you, thank goodness, that have followed the rules and have tried to stay safe and tried to keep the COVID from spreading on the one side. On the other side of that spectrum are people that have gone to these Trump rallies without masks, crowded together, listening to the president of the United States saying masks don't work and it's a bunch of BS and all that, and it's just terrible. But
you could tell you almost said right. Sean was like,
but I caught myself remembering that this was a family show.
Yes, it is.
It is a family show.
Don't go all doom zoom on us. This is for proper people. Yeah, I know, and they're having like 50 holiday parties where masking and distancing is optional at the White House. I mean, he's just going to go out as a bigger disaster than he's been the entire time. There's only one cure, and that is the book, The Future of Us, What the Dreams of Children Mean for 21st Century America. I've just received it. It is my holiday read, and I'm very excited. Dr. Doom's book.
Yes.
Get it. Okay, so I'm going to call you off the air later because I'm going to. Okay. All right. I'll talk to you later. Okay, love you.
Thanks, Dr. Redlener.
Love you too. Bye, guys.
Bye. Dr. Irwin Redlener.